Some roads hide more than just turns. They hide whispers. They hide shadows. Tonight, on Blackwood Pass, a driver learns the true meaning of fear.
Tom was a man carved from the asphalt and the relentless hum of his 18-wheeler. 40 years under his belt, 12 of them spent wrestling the big rigs across the country, had seasoned him like an old leather jacket.
He knew the mountain roads like the back of his calloused hand, especially Blackwood Pass, a serpentine stretch that snaked its way through the shadowed peaks of the Appalachians. He hauled produce mostly, crisp lettuce and ripe tomatoes from the farms nestled in the valleys to the bustling markets in the city, a route he could practically drive in his sleep.
His Peterbilt, a beast of chrome and steel, was his constant companion, his steel mistress, as he jokingly called her. He spent more time in her cramped cab than in his own home, seeing his wife and kids maybe 3 or 4 weekends a month. For Tom, life was the open road, and the open road was his life. He was a pragmatist, a no-nonsense man who trusted in horsepower and hard facts, not in the whispers of ghosts and the rustling of unseen things. The evening he set out, a damp chill clinging to the air, Tom arrived at the depot early, around 7, to oversee the loading of his cargo. While he waited, he shot the breeze with a couple of the other drivers, the conversation kicking off with work schedules and load weights before inevitably drifting towards the local lore, the kind of spooky tales that seemed to thrive in the long shadows of the mountains.
Mike, a wiry veteran with a mischievous grin, nudged Tom. "So, Tommy boy, what time are you rolling out tonight?" Tom took a swig of his lukewarm coffee.
10 sharp, taking it easy, aiming to hit the city around 4 in the morning. Night runs are smoother, less of that god-awful traffic. Mike chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. That's right. And who knows? Maybe you'll get lucky. Some pretty lady flagging you down, needing a ride. Frank, a gaunt driver with eyes that always seemed to be looking over your shoulder, interjected, his voice a dry rasp. "Don't even joke about that, Mike. Pretty lady might be a whole lot less than she seems. I drove through Blackwood once, around 2 in the morning. Saw a woman in a white dress standing by the side of the road. Froze my blood, I tell you. Didn't stop for anything."
Tom snorted, waving a dismissive hand. "Come on, Frank, you're letting these old wives' tales get to you. I've been running this route for 12 years, never seen a damn thing. Probably just tired eyes playing tricks." Frank just shook his head slowly, a knowing look in his shadowed gaze. "They're always around us, Tom. We just don't always see them."
But Tom was resolute. "I believe in what I can see and touch. When you're dead, you're done. No spooks, no specters." Frank studied him for a moment, then with another shake of his head, wandered off into the twilight. Tom paid him no mind, confident that every strange occurrence had a logical explanation waiting to be uncovered. By 5 minutes to 10, the refrigerated trailer was packed tight with the night's harvest. Tom double-checked the seals, grabbed his dispatch papers, and climbed into the cab of his Peterbilt. The engine roared to life, a deep, guttural sound that vibrated through the chassis. Headlights slicing through the depot's dim lighting, the truck rumbled slowly forward, pulling out onto the deserted highway. It was late October, the air biting with the early sting of winter.
As he passed the small town nestled at the foot of the mountains, the streetlights cast long, skeletal shadows. Ahead lay Blackwood Pass, infamous for its hairpin curves and the thick, unpredictable fog that could descend without warning. A place where more than one rig had met its untimely end.
During the day, the pass offered breathtaking vistas, a tapestry of evergreens clinging to the steep slopes. But at night, it transformed into something else entirely, a gauntlet of blackness where the towering pines stood like silent, watchful sentinels, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes against the inky sky.
Tom geared down, the Jake brake growling as he began the ascent, navigating the first treacherous curves with practiced ease. The fog thickened rapidly, a clammy shroud swallowing the road ahead. He flicked on his high beams, but the powerful lights only managed to penetrate a few feet into the swirling mist before being diffused into an impenetrable white wall. The world beyond his headlights was a void, just the dark silhouettes of the trees crowding the edges of the narrow asphalt.
The silence in the cab was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic thrum of the engine and the steady beat of his own heart. He reached for his thermos, the warmth of the coffee a small comfort against the encroaching chill. He took a long sip, then switched on the radio, hoping for some company. Static hissed from the speakers, punctuated by garbled snippets of voices that faded in and out like whispers from another realm. Annoyed, he scanned the stations, finally settling on a country ballad, the melancholic tune filling the cab. But then, the music began to warp, the notes twisting and stretching, as if some unseen hand was distorting the very airwaves. Tom frowned, fiddling with the tuner, but the static only intensified. Just then, a flicker of white caught his eye in the side mirror. A figure stood just beyond the reach of his headlights, on the shoulder of the winding road.
Tom squinted, peering through the fog-streaked glass. The high beams painted a stark image. A woman in a long, flowing white dress, her dark hair cascading down her back, obscuring her face. It was an incongruous sight, a delicate figure stranded in the desolate blackness of Blackwood Pass in the dead of night. He muttered under his breath, a mixture of annoyance and concern. "Damn fool, out here all alone at this hour? Doesn't she know this place isn't safe?" His initial thought was that she was a stranded motorist. Maybe her car had broken down up ahead. But something about her stillness, the way she stood motionless in the swirling fog, sent a prickle of unease down his spine. He didn't know it then, but this woman was far from ordinary.
The harsh glare of his headlights revealed a pallid complexion, a skin tone devoid of any natural color, as if the very lifeblood had been drained away. Blackwood Pass had a few sporadic stretches of dim streetlights these days, but this section was shrouded in darkness. As his heavy truck lumbered up a steep incline, the headlights locked onto the woman, her stark white dress a beacon in the oppressive night. Tom felt a sudden involuntary shiver. Her skin was unnaturally white, almost translucent. He flicked his high beams rapidly, laid on the air horn, a deafening blast that echoed through the silent mountains, signaling her to move. But she remained rooted to the spot, an unmoving silhouette against the swirling fog.
A knot of irritation tightened in Tom's gut, slowly giving way to a creeping sense of dread. He slammed on the brakes, the air brakes hissing loudly, bringing the massive truck to a jarring halt. He leaned out the window, the cold, damp air stinging his face. "Hey, what the hell's wrong with you? You got a death wish? Standing in the middle of the road like that? You trying to get yourself killed?" The woman offered no response, no flicker of movement. She simply stood there, shrouded in the mist. Tom's patience snapped. "Are you deaf or something? Get out of the way!" Just then, the woman slowly raised her head. The truck's headlights illuminated a face as white as bone, utterly devoid of color. Her eyes were deep, black sockets, hollow and empty. The deliberate, agonizing slowness of her movement sent a jolt of something akin to fear through Tom. Though he fought to maintain his composure, he still clung to the belief that she was a living person, albeit a strange one. She took a few gliding steps towards the truck, her long white dress flowing around her like liquid moonlight. Her voice, when it came, was a soft, chilling whisper that seemed to slither through the fog and into the cab. Could you give me a ride? Just a little way." A strange, unsettling feeling washed over Tom, an instinct screaming at him to refuse. But then, Mike's earlier joking words echoed in his mind. "Some pretty lady flagging you down, needing a ride?" He glanced at the woman again. Young, slender, even with the odd pallor of her skin and those unsettling eyes, there was a certain ethereal beauty about her. He scoffed inwardly. "Well, look at me, Mr. Practical. Maybe my luck's finally turned. A pretty young thing needing help in the middle of nowhere." Despite the late hour and the isolation, a flicker of something primal stirred within him. He might have a wife and teenage kids back home, but the road was a lonely place, and the allure of the unexpected could be a powerful thing. He pushed open the passenger door. "All right, get in."
The woman moved with an unnatural grace, gliding into the cab without making a single sound. No rustle of fabric, no creak of the step, just a silent presence sliding onto the seat beside him. She sat close to the window, her hands resting on her lap, her gaze fixed on the swirling fog outside. An unnerving silence filled the cab. Tom pulled back onto the road, his mind racing, a strange mix of curiosity and unease churning within him. He decided to break the silence. "So," he began, trying to sound casual, "what's your name?" The woman turned her head slowly, her voice a breathy whisper, like the wind sighing through the pines. I don't have one." Tom frowned, a flicker of confusion. "No name? Everyone has a name." He pressed on, trying to keep the conversation light. "How old are you then?" 19. She replied, her voice barely audible above the hum of the engine. Tom chuckled softly, a nervous sound in the cramped space. Probably ran away from home, he thought. Some family trouble. "You know, you're looking pretty pale, like Snow White. You got some kind of condition?" This time, the woman turned her head fully, her hollow black eyes fixing on Tom with an unnerving intensity. Her voice, still a whisper, took on a chilling edge. "Do you know what a dead person looks like?" Tom laughed, a short, forced sound. "Sure, gray, lifeless, not all glowy like you." But the words had barely left his lips when a cold realization slammed into him. Wait a minute. Her skin. That unnatural whiteness. It's not normal. His heart began to pound against his ribs, a cold dread seeping into his bones. He stammered, trying to regain control of the conversation. I forgot to ask, where are you headed? The woman continued to stare at him, her voice dropping to a near inaudible murmur that seemed to seep into the very fabric of the truck. Just up ahead, near the old Cutler place. The response sent a jolt of pure terror through Tom. He knew Blackwood Pass like the lines on his own hand. There was no house, no Cutler place anywhere near that stretch of road, just dense forest and a deserted, overgrown logging camp from decades past. A sudden gust of wind rattled the truck, causing the passenger door to shudder as if something was tapping lightly on the outside. The temperature in the cab seemed to plummet, a bone-chilling cold that had nothing to do with the outside air. The silence returned, heavier now, suffocating. Tom's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. His breath came in short, ragged gasps. Outside, the fog had become even thicker, a swirling, opaque mass that blotted out everything beyond the immediate reach of his headlights. It felt as if the pass itself was closing in on them, swallowing them whole in its inky embrace. Who or what was sitting beside him? This woman, Sarah, what was she? The chilling truth began to dawn on Tom. He wasn't just giving a ride to a stranger. He was sharing his cab with something not of this world.
The fog on Blackwood Pass clung like a shroud, the feeble beams of Tom's headlights barely piercing the dense, swirling mass. The rhythmic drone of the engine was now punctuated by the frantic drumming of his heart, a counterpoint to the wind whistling through the cracks in the truck's aging frame. He had always scoffed at ghost stories, dismissed them as the fanciful ramblings of tired truckers. But tonight, doubt gnawed at the edges of his hardened skepticism. From the moment the pale woman had appeared by the roadside, an unsettling premonition had taken root. Now, as she sat beside him, her silence more unnerving than any scream, a cold, visceral fear gripped him. Her skin was the color of gravestones, her eyes vacant voids staring straight ahead, seeing something he couldn't. A reckless thought flashed through his mind. If she was real, I'd be in luck. Slowly, cautiously, Tom reached out his hand, intending to brush her knee, a test of reality. But there was nothing there. His hand passed right through the space where her leg should have been, meeting only the icy, intangible air that sent a jolt of pure terror through him. He snatched his hand back, his breath catching in his throat. He glanced at the passenger seat. It was empty.
This was it, his first encounter. His blood ran cold, every hair on his body standing on end. How? Just moments ago she was right here. He racked his brain, trying to find a logical explanation, but there was none. Suddenly, the truck's radio crackled to life, the static replaced by the chillingly familiar whisper of the woman's voice. "Now I know what kind of man you are, Tom. Just like all the others. Not even a ghost is safe from your kind." Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. I didn't. I'm sorry," he stammered, his voice trembling. But the disembodied voice echoed with a mocking tone. "Sorry, it's far too late for that, Tom. Now you'll know what true fear is." The fog outside seemed to writhe and churn. Then, from the dark abyss below the road, a white shape swooped upwards, a fleeting glimpse of a flowing white dress. Tom flinched violently, his foot slamming down on the brake pedal.
The massive truck screeched to a halt, its trailer jackknifing precariously, blocking both lanes of the narrow mountain pass. In the distance, the headlights of 5 approaching vehicles pierced the fog, a convoy of tour buses making their way up from the city. Tires squealed as the bus drivers reacted, their vehicles lurching to a stop. Inside, a chorus of shouts and curses erupted. Passengers craned their necks out of the windows, their faces a mixture of annoyance and fear. "What the hell? Some idiot truck driver blocking the whole damn road!" One of the bus drivers, a burly man with a red face, stormed out of his vehicle, his voice booming through the fog. "What kind of clown are you, pulling this crap on a blind curve? You trying to get everyone killed?" Tom's chest heaved, his face ashen. It was the ghost, the woman on the pass. She startled me." A wave of disbelieving laughter rippled through the bus passengers. "A ghost? This guy's lost his mind. Too much late-night driving, buddy. If you're scared of ghosts, maybe you should find a new job." The bus driver rolled his eyes. "Just move your rig, pal. Some of us have schedules to keep." Defeated and trembling, Tom climbed back into the cab. Reversing the jackknife trailer on the narrow, fog-shrouded road was a nightmare. 5 agonizing minutes passed before he managed to straighten the truck, allowing the frustrated buses to continue their journey.
As his own truck slowly rolled downhill, Tom gripped the steering wheel, his mind a chaotic jumble of fear and disbelief. I was wrong. All those stories, the other drivers, I should have listened. A wave of regret washed over him. He rounded another curve, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. His blood ran cold. The pale woman in white was there, clinging to the undercarriage of the truck, her long black hair whipping wildly in the wind, her white face and deep dark eye sockets staring up at him. She hasn't let go. She's still with me. Suddenly, a new sound reached his ears, a rapid rhythmic thumping from above, on the roof of the cab. Thump, thump, thump. The sound grew louder, closer, more insistent with each passing second. Then, abruptly, a face appeared against the windshield, upside down, pressed against the glass. The woman's face. Her lips were stretched into a grotesque smile, her hollow eyes boring into his. "Do you remember me, Tom?"
A strangled scream tore from Tom's throat. He slammed on the brakes again, the truck skidding violently. His breath came in ragged gasps, his heart hammering against his ribs. He whipped his head towards the passenger seat. The woman was there. She wasn't sitting, she was floating, inches above the seat, her long white dress swaying gently as if caught in an unseen breeze. Her skin was a sickly gray, her lips a bruised purple. There was no shadow beneath her. The interior lights of the cab flickered erratically, each flash revealing her face in a new, more horrifying detail. Bruises blooming on her pale skin, trails of dark, viscous fluid seeping from her eyes. "Do you remember me?" A torrent of fragmented images flooded Tom's mind. A rain-slicked road, the blinding glare of headlights, a figure in white darting into the truck's path, the sickening crunch of metal and bone, blood blooming on the wet asphalt. His heart pounded in his chest, a terrified echo of that long-forgotten night. No, it can't be. I never... The woman's laughter, a cold, empty sound, filled the cab. "You don't remember? Or do you just pretend you don't?"
The truck began to shake violently, veering wildly across the road. The woman's whisper filled his ears, laced with a chilling triumph. "Now it's your turn, Tom." The truck careened towards the edge of the precipice. The raw hatred radiating from the woman's spirit was palpable. Her sudden, violent death on this very pass years ago had left an indelible stain, a lingering resentment that clung to the mountain air. The other truckers who had encountered her knew the stories, knew to keep moving, to not offer her a ride. They had learned to live with the chilling possibility of her presence, to skirt the edges of her grief. But Tom, in his arrogant disbelief, had invited the darkness in. Now, he was paying the price. The truck bucked and shuddered as if grappling with an invisible force, something determined to drag it down into the abyss. Tom's foot was pressed hard on the accelerator, but the engine roared in protest, the truck slowing as if climbing an impossibly steep incline, even though they were plummeting downhill. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Cold sweat slicked his palms as he fought to maintain control of the wheel. The woman's voice, a constant, chilling murmur, echoed in his ears, each word a shard of ice piercing his soul. "Where do you think you're going, Tom? You can't escape me that easily." Her voice was right beside him now, so close he could feel the icy chill of her breath on his cheek. He flinched, trying to block out the sound, pushing the accelerator harder, but it was no use. The truck continued to lose speed, its momentum fading as if swallowed by the oppressive darkness.
Suddenly, the headlights of an oncoming vehicle cut through the fog. Inside, a passenger gasped, pointing, "Hey, there's someone on top of that truck! Tell her to get down! It's dangerous!" The word struck Tom like a physical blow, a brutal confirmation of the horrifying reality. He didn't need to look. He knew who was up there. But the passenger's exclamation meant that others could see her too. Tom's eyes darted to the rearview mirror. A mass of long black hair obscured the glass, almost completely blocking his view. Through the tangled strands, he could just make out the woman's face, her sunken eyes, her deathly pale skin, her bruised lips stretched into a malevolent grin. "Do you remember me?" The unexpected question sent a fresh wave of terror through him. He didn't know this woman. He had never seen her before. So why did she keep asking? The 19-ton truck lurched violently, then began to slide slowly towards the edge of the cliff. Tom's stomach lurched into his throat. One more push, and the truck would plunge into the black void below. Panic seized him. His hands trembled as he fumbled for the gear shift, but it was useless. The unseen force from behind held the truck in its relentless grip. He knew he couldn't fight it any longer. His life was worth more than his pride. He wrenched open the driver's side door and tumbled out, his legs nearly buckling beneath him. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking so badly he could barely dial. He called for roadside assistance, but in the dead of night, no one answered. Despair washed over him. He sank to his knees in the middle of the fog-shrouded road, his hands clasped together in a desperate plea. "Please, please forgive me. I'm just a truck driver, hauling cargo. I wasn't the one. I didn't cause your accident. If this truck goes over, I'll lose everything. My life, my job. Please, just let me go."
Suddenly, the truck stopped shaking. The invisible force released its hold, but the chilling whisper of the woman's voice echoed around him, seeming to emanate from the very fog itself. "I'll let you go, Tom, but on one condition." The wind howled, a frigid blast that seemed to drain the warmth from his very bones. Tom shivered, his voice barely a croak. What condition?" He looked up, his eyes wide with fear. The spectral figure of the woman hung suspended in the swirling mist, her hollow eyes burning with resentment.
Ever since I died on this pass, no one remembers me. No shrine, no prayers, no offerings. I am hungry. I am cold. I am alone." Tom stammered, Yes, I promise. I'll set aside part of my wages. I'll build you a shrine. I'll light incense every month. I'll bring you food." The wind died down. An eerie stillness descended upon the pass. Tom dared to hope that she was finally releasing him. But then her voice returned, this time laced with a chilling threat. "Once a month is not enough, Tom. I don't care about your family, your troubles. Twice a week. If you fail me, I will haunt you until your dying breath." As her words faded into the night, the spectral figure began to dissipate, dissolving into the swirling fog. The only sound was the wind sighing through the pines. Tom collapsed onto the cold asphalt, his body trembling uncontrollably. He knew he was now bound to this vengeful spirit, a promise made in terror. It took him a long time to gather the strength to stand. He managed to maneuver the truck back onto the road, his every nerve screaming in protest. The rest of the descent was a blur of fear and exhaustion. As he finally reached the bottom of Blackwood Pass, he let out a shaky breath, but the terrifying events of the night were etched into his mind. Her pale face, her chilling voice, that horrifying smile, they lingered in the air around him like a persistent nightmare. He had promised her a shrine. What would happen if he broke his word? Would she return to claim him?
Completely drained, his limbs heavy and unresponsive, Tom pulled his rig off the road near a deserted clearing just beyond Blackwood Pass. He slumped back in his seat, closing his eyes, but sleep offered no escape. The image of the woman with her hollow eyes and flowing black hair was burned into his eyelids. It wasn't until the first pale light of dawn that he finally jolted awake. The morning air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the oppressive dread of the night. The sounds of early morning traffic, the distant murmur of a town waking up filled the air. He shivered, pulling his jacket tighter, the lingering cold of the mountain night still clinging to him. Then, he remembered his delivery. He grabbed his phone and called his client, his voice still hoarse. If last night hadn't happened, he'd be pulling into the city right about now, fresh produce ready for the market. The client answered on the first ring, his voice impatient. "Where are you, Tom? You're late." Tom swallowed hard. He couldn't tell him about the ghost? He'd sound insane. I had some mechanical trouble on the pass. Just got back on the road. Should be there soon." The client exploded. "Mechanical trouble? That's gonna cost me. This produce needs to be fresh. If it's wilted by the time you get here, you're gonna be paying for it. What kind of operation are you running?" Tom could only apologize, his stomach churning with anxiety. The client hung up abruptly. Moments later, his dispatcher called, chewing him out for the delay and the potential damage to the company's reputation. Tom listened in silence, absorbing the reprimand. He had no excuse they would accept.
Once the calls ended, he started the truck, his mind heavy with the weight of his broken promise and the impending financial repercussions. About a mile down the road, he spotted a familiar diner, a greasy spoon catering to long-haul truckers. He pulled in, needing a hot meal and a moment of normalcy. He ordered a stack of pancakes, the warm syrup a small comfort against the lingering chill. Across from him sat another driver, a man named Earl, who also ran the mountain route. Earl eyed Tom's haggard appearance.
"Rough night, huh, Tom? You look like you've seen a ghost."
The words were an innocent jest, but they hit Tom like a punch to the gut. The dam inside him broke. He recounted the entire terrifying ordeal of the previous night, the pale hitchhiker, the disembodied voice, the face at the window. To his surprise, Earl didn't laugh or dismiss his story. He simply nodded slowly, his expression grim. "I believe you, Tom. That stretch of Blackwood, it's got a bad history. About 20 years back, right where you said you saw her, there was a terrible accident." Tom leaned forward, listening intently as Earl continued. "Young woman, just 19, local girl, lost control of her car on a rainy night, went right over the side. They said it was instant, but her spirit, well, some say it never left." Tom felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. Earl sighed, his gaze sympathetic. "Seems like she's chosen you, Tom. They say once they latch onto you, it's hard to shake 'em. You made a promise. You gotta keep it." Tom's promise echoed in his mind. "Twice a week, if you fail me, I will haunt you until your dying breath."
After a silent breakfast, Tom continued his drive, the weight of his encounter and his vow pressing down on him. After finally delivering his load, exhausted and shaken, he received a summons to the company office. They wanted a full report. Tom hesitated, then decided to tell them everything, the unvarnished truth. The company, skeptical but concerned, pulled the footage from Tom's dashcam. As the grainy video played on the conference room screen, a stunned silence fell over the room. Through the swirling fog, a fleeting white figure appeared on the road directly in front of the truck. Later, the truck could be seen rocking violently despite the smooth road surface. And then, captured by the auxiliary camera mounted on the cab's roof, a mass of long, dark hair and a pallid face flashed across the screen. Gasps of disbelief and muttered expletives filled the room. The company owner, a stern-faced man named Mr. Henderson, watched the footage intently. After a long pause, he made a decision. "If this is true, we need to do something. We can't just leave Tom to deal with this." He called a meeting with all the drivers. Some were terrified and refused to get involved, dismissing it as superstition. But others, who had heard similar whispers over the years, agreed that something needed to be done to appease the spirit. Ultimately, the company agreed to provide financial support. 4 drivers, including Tom, volunteered to pool their resources and build a small memorial near the spot where the young woman had tragically died decades ago. 3 of Tom's closest friends at the company also offered their help, deeply moved by his ordeal, bringing tears to his eyes. The company even chipped in an extra $500 a month for the 4 drivers involved to cover the cost of offerings for the shrine. After securing the necessary permits from the local authorities, a small, humble shrine was erected on a patch of ground overlooking the very cliff face where she had met her end.
From that day forward, the chilling incidents on Blackwood Pass began to subside. The ghostly sightings became rarer, the cold spots less frequent. Tom, along with his 3 friends, faithfully maintained the shrine, lighting incense and leaving offerings twice a week. Every time he passed that stretch of road, he would honk his horn 3 times, a respectful salute to the small wooden structure nestled amongst the pines. Drivers still occasionally reported seeing a fleeting white shadow on the roadside at night, a silent figure standing perfectly still. But she no longer seemed to seek rides, no longer stalked the trucks with malevolent intent. Perhaps in finally being remembered, in having a place where her sorrow could be acknowledged and her restless spirit honored, she had at last found a measure of peace. The terror of that night never truly left Tom, but a new, quiet understanding took its place, a profound respect for the unseen world and the echoes of the past that still walk among us. The pass was still Blackwood, still treacherous, but now it carried a different kind of silence, one that felt less like a threat and more like a whispered blessing.